Today's video is called Shia LaBeouf Part 13, and this one is called Wish Granted. So this is Part 13 in my Shia LaBeouf series, Wish Granted. And also, there is a question for Elon Musk at the end, but in order for that question to make sense, you have to suffer through the whole presentation. So in order for the question to make sense at the end, you have to suffer through the whole presentation. And it can be kind of long. I'll try to go through it quickly, but bear with me. So for context, on July 15th, I mailed Shia LaBeouf a letter. And in that letter, I expressed interest in whatever new thing he was trying to do with art. He said he was leaving Hollywood. He's trying to start this new thing in art. And I asked if I could be a part of it, because for the last many years, I've been helping men build their kingdoms, and I don't think their kingdoms are going to stand the test of time. So I want to be a part of something that is going to last and that is actually beneficial, something I enjoy doing. So I asked him if I could be a part of it. And then I asked Shia what his dreams were. He has this thing, you know, don't let your dreams be dreams. So I was asking Shia, like, what are your dreams? Like, what are your desires? How do you want to grow? What is it you want to do? Basically the same thing, you know, asking if I could help do whatever it is he's trying to do. So I sent that letter to him, and then on July 18th, that's when I did my video on Honey Boy. And in that video, I mentioned how Shia had an encounter with a stalker, and I said I was probably going to back off for a little bit regarding using Shia LaBeouf as a theme for my videos. It seemed like a good time to maybe stop and give him some space. And then July 24th, I did the Real One, the video regarding his interview with Real Ones, and I was hesitant to make that video because it seemed like hypocrisy. In the previous video, I said, you know, it seems good that I back off, that I stop, you know, using Shia as a subject for, or a springboard, and, you know, and subject for my videos, and that I choose a new theme. And then now it's like I'm continuing to talk about Shia. It seemed like hypocrisy. So it's like I didn't want to make the video because I just said I was going to back off, but yeah, it seemed like hypocrisy, but I was like moved to do it. I wanted to do it. And then after making that video, I realized Shia had expressed what one of his dreams were. So through the process of making the Real Ones video, like Shia expressed what one of his dreams are. So it's like, oh, great. You know, I asked Shia, you know, what are your dreams? Because I'm doing this little part-time fairy gig where it's like I want to fulfill everyone's dreams, wishes, desires, make them glad, bring them joy. So it's like my desire was to grant Shia's desires, and then, you know, I asked him what, you know, his dreams were, and then it shows divine guidance. That's the point I want to encourage people with. It shows like divine guidance and how God can answer prayer. You know, if I have a desire to fulfill Shia's desires, it's like God can bring that about, you know, through your own motives and your own desires. He'll bring you to a point where it's like he fulfills it, he answers your prayer. And I can see that in this process. Yep, so after making that video, I realized Shia had expressed what one of his dreams were. Yep, because I've been trying to, you know, in the past, it's like I'm done watering dead trees. I'm done watering dead trees that don't bear fruit, that aren't productive. It's like not a good use of my time, my energy. I don't want to water dead trees. It's like pouring out your energy and your light into a black hole. Like nothing comes out of it. You're helping this person, and they're selfish and they're greedy. And they're ungrateful. They don't even say thank you. So it's like I'm done pouring my energy into that. I want to pour my energy where it's like will be valuable, will be useful. So Shia's dream, this is where he said, you know, that's where I'm aiming at. So I think it'll be a Christmas one day where he's talking about his daughter. She just wakes up and goes, man, Dad's got a lot of friends. Who are these people? And Mommy will say, Dad had a hand to play in these people finding the same thing he found. That's what I'm hoping for, you know? So it was through the Real Ones interview and the video that I made on it that this was brought to my attention. You know, that God brought this to my attention, like, oh, you want to answer Shia, you know, you want to fulfill Shia's dreams. Well, here's one of them that you could, you know, contribute to. So it's like God answered my prayer through that process. So this is, I plan on mailing this to him. Here's the envelope I made for your letter that I'm going to mail to you. That's the envelope. Bippity boppity boo. I use that language because of my part-time job where I moonlight as a fairy. That's my hobby. That's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy going around, bringing people joy, making people glad, solving their problems, little problems that I'm able to do, like this one. What are, you know, Shia's dreams? Well, I can, you know, provide contribution to that. So bippity boppity boo, because that's kind of like my part-time job where I moonlight as a fairy. It doesn't pay anything, but it gains me favor and wisdom with God Most High. So, and people from my conservative religious circles would probably respond by saying, wishes are pagan, what an apostate wacko. Like if I say I want to, you know, go around granting, you know, people's wishes like a fairy, they would view that as like, I'm an apostate lunatic. She's lost her mind. What do you mean you want to be a fairy granting wishes? You want to be a witch? Is that what you're saying? So in response to that, I have Psalm 37, verses 3 through 6. Verse 4, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So God granting people the desires of their heart, that sounds like granting wishes, fulfilling wishes. That's the same concept with different terms. So if I present that concept as, you know, as a fairy because it brings me joy and I can embrace the experience, yeah, it's biblical. What I'm doing is good. What I'm doing what God does. So, yeah. And then I have Luke 6, verse 38. Give, and it will be given to you. For by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you in return. So if I go around like a fairy granting everyone's wishes and desires, well, if that's what I'm putting out into people, if that's what I'm distributing, well, that's what's going to be given to me. If I'm pouring out into people this way, fulfilling all their wishes like a magic fairy, well, that's what I'm going to receive. If that's how I show up in creation, well, that's going to be the creation that's brought to me. God is retributive, so that's why I'm doing this. Also, I enjoy making people happy. If people have a need or a desire and you're able to help them, it's like I enjoy being able to fulfill that need. Yeah. So the letter, Shia's wish fulfillment, it's not actually a letter to Shia, it's a letter to your daughter, Isabel, because that's, you know, you want her to be able to witness these things on, you know, Christmas one day. So it's a letter written to Isabel. It says, Isabel, Merry Christmas. I wonder what type of bird that is. Probably like a raven. Lord willing, there will come a day where your dad is granted his wish fulfillment, and there is a Christmas day where your home is filled with family and friends whom your dad has blessed and helped. Knowing that our days are numbered and that I'm not guaranteed tomorrow, I wanted to provide my contribution in writing. So whenever you have this Christmas where your friends are there, if I can't be physically present, I want to send you my letter, you know, ahead of time, and I can contribute in writing. There was a season in my life where I was experiencing and enduring much suffering, grief, sorrow, and pain, all of which were in alignment with the sufferings of Jesus. With a deepened understanding of Christian suffering through my experience, I soon realized that there wasn't others around me that shared that understanding, which left me feeling alone and unable to relate to others. So I went through a season of sufferings, and that experience, it brought me into greater union and communion with God and with Jesus, but at the same time, it made it difficult to relate to others around me, because what I had experienced, it didn't seem like other people could relate to it. When I stumbled upon your dad's Padre Pio interview, and when I heard him talk about the sufferings of Jesus, my heart was comforted and it brought me joy. It's a miracle that the ears of a Protestant Reformed Baptist girl were even open to hear and receive the words of a troubled, worldly Catholic boy. It's a miracle that when I saw that video, when it came across my social media, that I had attention to, that I gave it attention, to even hear and consider the words that Shia was saying, as opposed to like, oh, he's a Catholic, this is everything wrong with what he's saying. It's a miracle that I gave it attention and that I listened and I was able to recognize truth in what he was saying. As I listened to him speak on the sufferings of Christ in his own words, I could sense that he had a depth of understanding similar to my own. And that realization helped me to not feel so alone. Since then, Shia's mere existence on earth is a thought which brings me comfort. So in my vicinity with the acquaintances around me, it's like I couldn't find anyone to relate to. And then after hearing Shia talk about his sufferings, or the sufferings of Christ, and it's like, oh, that person, there's a shared understanding there. Just knowing that he exists, it brought me comfort. Knowing that, there's someone else that understands, even though they're like somewhere else, on the earth. If one were to look at outward appearances, they may judge us to be complete opposites or even enemies at war with each other. But on the heart level, Shia felt like a brother of kindred spirit and a close friend. When listening to your dad's interview with John Bernthal, your dad helped me see that the feelings I had toward him in college when I had developed a crush weren't feelings of love, but were rather feelings in line with hatred. My interest and desire came solely from a place of selfishness, what I could gain, what I could receive, how I could be benefited. I had no thought or care towards who he actually was as a person, what his needs and desires were, if I was able to be a blessing towards him in a relationship, or what extent I could be a benefit to him. Later, the Andrew Callahan interview caught my attention. I was able to perceive more truth mutually shared between the two of us, which Shia had expressed in his own words and phrasing. I was also able to perceive needs that Shia had and ways in which he could benefit from some help. Through that interview, God cultivated in me a genuine and sincere love for my brother and empowered me with the strength to demonstrate that love towards him. Your dad helped me by reminding me of the love of God through the example he gave of his own experience, and by providing for an opportunity where I could render selfless, sacrificial love towards him. The ability to give true love made possible by having first received it from God. And I've never interacted with this man. I've never received anything back from Shia, but to Isabel, your dad helped me, one, perceive that the feelings I had for him in the past, it was like jealousy and selfishness and just wanting to take. And then he provided opportunity where I could actually love him genuinely and sincerely from the heart in a way that is in accord with the love of God. So I'm thankful for your dad and his sufferings and what he experienced and the enlightenment that he received during Padre Pio and being willing to talk about his own thoughts and meditations on the sufferings of Jesus in that interview. It's been a great benefit to me. So God bless you. Love, I put a heart, Rebecca. And then I put one of the quotes from a Christmas hymn, He will bring us goodness and light. It's from Do You Hear What I Hear? So this is a letter to Isabel, and it's in accord with Shia's wish fulfillment. It's just my contribution. Side note, I did not know of Shia's relationship. Had I known, my actions still would have been the same, but my tone may have been different regarding certain, flirty comments or whatever. I still would have done everything I did, and I would have said mostly everything that I've said, but the tone might have been different with what I said or how I said it or how I showed up. But my actions still would have been, the same. I didn't know that Shia had a relationship. Even when I Googled the John Bernthal YouTube stuff, this didn't show up until recently. So not like I'm always Googling him, but in the times where I have Googled him to pull stuff from interviews and everything, that never was revealed to me. So I didn't know. I'm not trying to take away anyone's blessing. So I didn't know that there was a established relationship. So I still would have done, all my works would have been the same. But what moved me to want to help Shia and encourage him and try to minister him spiritually, it was just the response to that incident. It was just so unreasonable and ludicrous and insane. Like in regards to the, homophobic accusation, Shia makes a statement and now everyone's calling him like Shia's homophobic downfall. It was just so ridiculous what he communicated and how they viewed his words and what they did with them and how they took it and ran and brought it in a direction, whichever direction that they wanted to take it in, and, paint him in whatever light that they wanted to paint him in, instead of considering what he meant with what he said. Instead of considering like what's true, it's like they interpret it as, however they wanted to view him. And then they just run with that. So seeing that response in regards to, what Shia said about homosexual people, it was just ridiculous. And then considering what he was arrested for, Shia was targeted and framed. I have this video, Justice for Shia, talking about just observations that I've seen in Shia, I've seen in Jeffrey. He was targeted and framed. And in this video, it shows how Jeffrey's like provoking him, saying, like, call me faggot, call me faggot. And then there's a large pause of time, and then Shia eventually is like, faggot. And then it's like, he's using these, homophobic slurs, da-da-da-da-da. It's like you're provoking him to call you, you're saying, call me faggot. And when he does, you asked him to do it. It's so ridiculous. It was so ridiculous. It was clear that he was targeted and provoked and then framed. And that's in accord with the sufferings of Christ too. This is Psalm 56. All day long they distort my words. All their thoughts are against me for evil. They attack, they lurk, they watch my steps as they have waited to take my life. Also, I put Psalm 59 and Psalm 10. Here is Psalm 35. But at my stumbling they rejoiced and gathered together. The smiters whom I did not know gathered together against me. They slandered me without ceasing. Like godless jesters at a feast, they gnashed at me with their teeth. They devise deceitful words against those who are quiet in the land. I don't know if, you probably can't say, Shia's involvement at Mardi Gras would, I probably wouldn't say that that's him being quiet in the land, but I don't think he was hurting people while he was there until they provoked him and agitated him and got him to respond, maybe out of fear or provocation. And then in 1 Peter 4, to the degree that you share in the sufferings of Christ, keep on rejoicing, so that also at the revelation of his glory you may rejoice with exultation. Those who also suffer according to the will of God shall entrust their souls to a faithful Creator in doing what is right. So, through that incident and, the public response, the media response, the response from the civil magistrate, it was unjust. And I've been in similar situations, and I know that it's very hurtful. So it's like seeing that response, well, it hurt me to see it. So that's what motivated me to want to help Shia, because if it hurt me just as a onlooker, he's probably hurting a lot more. And that's what love is. Pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself unstained by the world, to go to them, to give them help. If they're in a state of distress, it's like, and of that, well, go to them in that state and render the help that they need. Let us not love with word or with tongue, but in deed and truth. So I'm thankful for that opportunity where God empowered me to serve and to do works of love, render words of love in accord with how God defines love. And Shia never asked me. He never told me what he needed. He never told me he needed help. He never asked for help. He never, in all of my engagements and, depositing, doing certain works, saying certain things, and all of my actions, I haven't heard anything from Shia. Not anything against him, but just for, transparency, he hasn't said thank you. He didn't mail me back a letter. He, when I, dropped some stuff off at his house, he didn't come out, say things. He hasn't been active in this process. He's been purely passive. He's just receiving. And I'm just doing. It's not, you don't need someone to consent if you want to love them, if you want to help them, if you want to serve them, if you care. You don't need them to consent, is what I'm saying. If you want to help someone, you'll find a way to render the help that you think that they need. And you can find out what need that they, what help they need just by observations. You don't, if you perceive a need, you can fulfill it. You can do that of your own accord. If you wanted to, you would. And that's what makes things like this, talking about Sean Roper, it's just trash. It's pure trash. It's pure trash, Sean. Lies and deceit and bullshit. That's what it is. It's just garbage. to say, oh, we met with our deacons and need more information about your situation to figure out how we can best help you. Are you needing to verify the data in my letter to validate the financial need? With everyone we try to help, we seek holistic help, both physical and spiritual needs. We are a church that seeks to walk in humility and the fear of the Lord. We seek to put God's love on display and not hatred. This is lies, 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 Sean. You have been a liar to me in these texts. Who are you trying to deceive? Yourself? Are you trying to deceive yourself that this is the case, that you want to love the way that God loves? You want to seek to put the love of God on display and not hatred? What you're doing is hatred. By your acts, you are testifying that you hate me, Sean. You have hated me. Who are you trying to deceive? This is a joke. This is just trash. We seek to better understand your situation and in turn your need. I told you what my situation was. I told you what I needed. Shia didn't tell me what his situation was, and Shia didn't tell me what he needed. I could observe that on my own, and I could render the need that he needed of my own accord. I could seek understanding of my own accord. If I want more understanding, God will answer that, and he will lead me down a path to give me more understanding so I could fulfill more of his needs. If you wanted to, you would, but you hate me, Sean. You hate me. This is hatred. You have hatred and malice and envy, jealousy towards me. So, but in response to my part-time job as a ferry, I thought if I got this jacket, I could have ferry sponsors. I could get a jacket like with NASCAR, and I can get the sponsors. Patches embroidered on my jacket if you guys wanted to be sponsors in regards to my part-time ferry job. So I'm opening that offer to Shia, Andrew, Stephen, and Scott. Shia and Andrew because I like you, and then Stephen and Scott. Stephen is something cat. Thundercat, and Scott is Kid Cootie. So that's why I have their logos on that jacket as like a ferry NASCAR jacket, and I could get these embroidered patches as like sponsors. Why do I only offer, with like Stephen and Scott? Well, in that interview, you mentioned when, in your time of need, when you posted on Twitter, free me or something, those were the two names that you called out that they tried to help you. So, and it's probably help of genuine love and, sincere kindness towards you. It's not conditional. It's not like they're selfish. It's not like there's strings attached to it. They probably care, genuinely care for you as a friend, and they're doing it to help in your time of need, not because it's like they're gonna get a return from it later. So because of, you called their names out and how they render genuine care and help towards you in your time of need, that's why I would be willing to have them as a sponsor, because plus, like, all of you guys have your own, like, established kingdoms, so it's not like the whole power and control thing. I think you guys would, if you wanted to be a sponsor and help in some way, it's like, I think you would do that of your own accord, not expecting, like, a return from it, to be a means to, like, raise yourself up. I think you would just do it because, I don't know, maybe you'd be interested in something like this. So I could get a NASCAR jacket and have sponsors for my ferry job. And as a side note, Shia needs a brand logo. So I have Channel 5's logo, Thundercat's logo, Kid Cootie's logo. He uses the moon. So everyone has a logo except for Shia. So Shia needs a brand logo. I don't know. He doesn't have a patch to be a sponsor with my ferry NASCAR jacket. But I think the jacket's really cool, and then we could all get jackets. Boom. And then we could do like a segment with Channel 5, and we could have our own news panel where we wear our fun jackets. Except for Andrew. Andrew, you have to be professional. But we could do a big patch of Channel 5 where it's kind of obnoxious and stands out. But I put you in the middle with like a suit where it's like you have to look professional, but everyone else can wear their fun jackets. Thundercat has a bomber type jacket with his merch, and that's, you know, just a sweatshirt that Kid Cudi had on his merch stuff, and I put my mermaid jacket on there. And then for Shia, I did that yellow sweatshirt with that portrait of your dad as a clown on it as your fun jacket. So we could all get jackets, and we could be, I don't know, we could have like a discussion on, you know, Channel 5, a segment where we show up and talk about whatever. Because I hate stuff like this where it looks professional, but the content is a joke. The substance is a joke. They look professional and respectable and yeah. Appearance-wise, it looks like they have their stuff together, and you can trust what they're saying, and that they're leaders in what it is that they're speaking about. So appearance-wise, it's like they look professional, but the substance is a joke. So that's why when I kind of do my videos, I kind of did the opposite. The Sandlot shirt, with that shirt, I was trying to go extreme. Like, what's the most ridiculous shirt I could wear? Because it's like, I want to make it clear that I hate their appearances. So I'm going to intentionally make myself look ridiculous. So that's why I wore the Sandlot shirt. But the shirts that I've worn after that, like here I have my Robin Hood shirt. I actually like that shirt. That is, that's not me trying to be intentionally ridiculous. I just like cartoons and stuff from my childhood as a millennial. So that's why those shirts I actually like. But the Sandlot one, I don't really love that movie, and I bought that shirt to wear, you know, be ridiculous. But the other ones I actually like. Because I think my content is good and valuable, and the substance is more valuable than the substance of, you know, what the Sword and the Trowel puts out. And if people can't perceive that because of appearances, you're not the right audience. And then later with like these appearances, I wanted to provoke legalists in regards to modesty, with like my sports bra. And this one where I have like that pink bra, and it's like you could see the straps and it's like hanging down. It's just, I don't care anymore. So I intentionally kind of made myself look like a skank to go against their modesty standards and what godliness looks like. So that's why I wore the sports bra, and then I have, you know, the hot pink bra showing through there. Yeah, basically it's like with like the Sword and the Trowel, it's like these people are clowns, but they look professional. So it's like, I'm gonna make myself look like a clown, even though I know my content is legitimate and valuable, and good, and I think it's needed. So I try to do the opposite. They look professional and their content is a joke. So it's like, I'm gonna look ridiculous and look like a clown, but my substance is valuable. But dressing up like a clown, or, you know, what one could describe as a clown, that's kind of also been my, that's not unusual for me. This is me at my engineering job. That's when LuLaRoe was, you know, trendy, and I was wearing those leggings with like a solid shirt. And I remember taking that picture. It's like I dressed up like a clown today for work. So me going to my professional engineering job while dressing up like a clown for that is not something that's unusual. That's kind of according to who I am and who I have been throughout the duration of my life and existence. So that's like casual clown, you know, under my desk. And then with Steve Lawson, that's like professional clown, where it's still colorful, but the form of the articles of clothing are more professional in their silhouette, where it's like you have the black skirt and then, you know, the colorful top and the colorful cardigan. So this was at a conference, but it was after I had left work. I wore that to work, and then after I left work, I showed up at the conference like that. So dressing up like a clown, that's kind of my character and nature anyways. So, yep, so I get a jacket. We all get jackets. We do a Channel 5 news panel, and then, boom, in 2028, I run for president. I will be 38, and the requirements for president is a natural-born citizen, at least 35, and have been a resident of the United States for 14 years. So I will be having just, you know, entered into being eligible to run for president. So I can run for president in 2028. I'll be the first female president, and I'll also be the youngest president. The youngest president was, you know, 43 or 42. So I can run for president in 2028. I'll be the first female president, and I'll be the youngest president. And then during the election, well, I get engaged to Elon Musk. And then for my VP running mate, I choose Shia LaBeouf. And my slogan is, don't let your dreams be dreams. Everybody gets a wish fulfillment. So that's going to be, you know, the platform for my campaign is everyone gets a wish fulfillment if you vote for me. And it's like, well, how is she gonna grant all of our wishes? Well, that's where you come in, Elon. We get engaged, so it's like, oh, with Elon's money, she'll be able to afford all these wish fulfillments that the country wants. Instead of me just making these empty promises, everyone gets a wish fulfillment. Well, it's like, how is she gonna do that? It's like, oh, once we get engaged, it's like now it adds credibility of like, yeah, she'll be able to, you know, she's going to do it with Elon's money. So that's why we get engaged. And then, yeah, for my VP running mate, Shia LaBeouf. If you ran for president, I would vote for you, but I don't know with your citizenship if you're eligible to run for president. But I think if I get engaged to you, it's also kind of like a vote for me is a vote for Elon. And I don't know what background Shia has in political science, but for me, my hope is that Elon knows what to do, or that important decisions I have to make can be made by casting lots. So how am I going to function, you know, in the role of presidency, having no background in political science, Well, my hope is that Elon will know how to run a country, or if I have to make a decision, I could do it by casting lots. And that's how, you know, the priests make decisions by casting lots, and it's like that decision, it's from God. So that's how I will operate that role as a president, having no background in political science. I'm banking on Elon knowing how to run a country, and I can just enjoy the experience and be a part of it. Yeah, so I get engaged to Elon Musk. And then that's when all of my jealous haters start coming out of the woodworks. And they're like 36 and 55. That'd be too much of an age gap for me. That'd be, you know, he'd be too old for me if, you know, are you sure he's not too old for you? Yes, I'm sure. Okay, Tracy, if that's, that would be too much of an age difference for you, you're entitled to have that opinion. Yeah, that might be too much of an age difference, for you. But for me, no, it wouldn't be a problem. Typically, yeah, 55 would be outside of the bounds of, I don't know how to phrase it, who I would consider. But for this 55-year-old, no, he's not off limits. He's not someone I wouldn't be uninterested in, Tracy. The age gap, no, that would not be a concern for me with this 55-year-old. With other 55-year-old men, yeah, they might be, too mature. Not this one, so wouldn't be a problem for me. So then fast forward, well, during the debates, Shia's performance breaks records. He does a great job. I'm even, great performance. It breaks records, the turnout, the viewership in regards to debates. Shia's performance, he puts on a good show. We win, and then at the, inauguration, I have Kelly Clarkson sing My Country 'Tis of Thee, which is what she sang in 2013, and I really like that version of the song. And then Taylor Swift comes out, and she does Mastermind, and then Imagine Dragons, and they perform Thunder. And then after the election, well, dun, 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 wedding, Elon and I get married. As a wedding gift, Elon gets me a Cybertruck. He makes me a custom Cybertruck with rainbow oil slick finish. Similar to this. I don't know how they do that finish on steel, but he develops the perfect treatment to, make me a custom Cybertruck with this oil slick rainbow finish on that unfinished steel Cybertruck. That's my wedding gift. That Elon gets for me when we get married. And then there are reports that for a week prior to our wedding, well, there are reports that, Elon and Shia were seen in it listening to Saweetie's Best Friend, her song Best Friend, while smoking cigars so that it would smell like my late father's truck, which I asked to drive after his passing so that I could grieve, and was denied because of bullshit excuses that Renee made up. So when my dad died, I asked to borrow his truck to help with the grieving process. Because that was the pattern when he was in the Navy and he would go out to sea, he would leave me his truck to drive. So as part of the grieving process, I asked if I could borrow his truck to drive around. And I could not. I was denied that opportunity because bullshit excuses that Renee made up, including he has Raytheon. I think he has some Raytheon paperwork in there that might be needed, or he has a firearm in it. Okay. So I was denied that opportunity. So as a way, to make up for it, Shia LaBeouf and Elon Musk, a week prior to handing me over the truck, it's like they drive around in it smoking these cigars that my dad smoked so that it's fumigated, and it's a close replica of what was taken from me. Yeah. And yeah, and while they're smoking out my rainbow Cybertruck, they're listening to Sweetie's Best Friend. Because in that song, she says, is that my Bessie and a Tessie? So they're jamming out to that while, preparing my Cybertruck, which is a wedding gift. And then I have that clip from John Wick where it's like he couldn't grieve, when his wife passed, he couldn't grieve. So kind of similar to that, what was taken from him, yeah. Yeah. So then after we get married, Elon, well, we start new businesses. So you have Channel X, which is Channel 10. So that's like a media news business, kind of in partnership with Channel 5. Well, you can do Channel 10, but it's called Channel X. We use the Roman numeral because of your X stuff. So you do Channel 10, and that's like our White House, national news. And then as VP, we have my friend Edgar Nazario. And then we also start a new business where we do our own line of household appliances, where it's just stripped down to mechanical, the electronics and the touch screens, that's kind of all stripped away, and it's just kind of purely back to being a mechanical appliance with, minimal electronic components. For VPs for that business, we have Troy and Tina Aether. And I don't know what we would call this business, but the slogan could be, they work. I don't care what they look like. I just want something to work for a long period of time. That's where I'm at now. I don't want to buy a new washing machine or a new refrigerator or a new vacuum every 5 years. So we do a new business where it's household appliances, and we have metal gears and metal parts, and these things are built to last. So that's the new business that we start, household appliances. And then it's like they're built to last, but they do require maintenance, like a car, maybe, gears and belts need to be oiled and cleaned out in order to extend the life expectancy. So for qualified maintenance technicians, we limit those roles to recovering addicts, recovering drug addicts, and released felons. People that might have committed a crime, committed a felon, they went to prison and now they're out, and now their opportunity for work is limited, or recovering drug addicts that need to heal their mind and heal their body, but also need to work, but maybe their faculties are limited. Well, when we start looking for, qualified maintenance technicians, we limit that role for these types of people where we can train them and the work is reasonably simple. And now we can give them jobs and we can train them to do this work, released felons and recovering addicts. And yeah, we can help revive their lives by giving them, only these types of people can be trained to do this job. I don't know if we would hire them directly through the company. Like if you buy it, that also includes all the needed maintenance, and then it's automatically loaded, and we, schedule and send out, maintenance technicians automatically. Or if we just offer free training and then they can exist in their communities, and then when people need maintenance, they could just do that work and get paid cash on their own. However you want to structure it. But we, we invest in people. We invest in people. That's the business, growing people. This business is a means to grow people. Yeah. And then, so Christmas 2029, well, Isabel has Christmas in the White House, surrounded by Dad's friends, along with Gloria, Barnabas, Luke, and Elon's fortnight of children. I include my kids and my nephew, and I like fortnight, how the UK, how British people use that for a measure, a grouping of 14 days, 2 weeks. But in the Bible, a week is just a grouping of 7. And we use it, it's isolated to a grouping of 7 days. But a dozen, you can use that grouping in reference to any type of quantity. So I like the word fortnight. as a grouping of 14. And typically I think it's only in reference to days, but I'm going to start using it where I see it, where it's, what it's grouping isn't days, but like other things. So that's why I have Elon's 14 kids, Elon's fortnight of children. And I hired Tina Aether and Tina Cathy to do decor for Christmas, and that's their wish fulfillment. And again, that plays into Shia's wish fulfillment, where, you know, he wants that Christmas, because all of that will be brought about from that one, you know, interview. How, you know, Shia has been a means of help towards me. Well, anything that can come from me, well, that also plays back into Shia. Yep. So then, you know, after, you know, we win the election, I get married, Christmas, things start to settle. Well, then we start having marriage turmoil. There's, you know, some turmoil, some disturbances in our marriage. What's it over? Well, it's over Elon's dream of colonizing a planet. That's like his passion, his life mission. Everything else is a side quest. His main focus and goal is eventually, you know, building these rockets, going to a planet and establishing a colony, colonization of planets, and, you know, bringing civilization to other planets. That's like his main dream and life mission, and like everything else is just kind of like a side quest. So in reference to that, well, I see it as the equivalent of the Tower of Babel. Here's Genesis 11, 1 through 4. They said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they used brick for stone, and they used tar for mortar. They said, "Come, let us build for ourselves a city and a tower whose top will reach the heaven, and let us make for ourselves a name. Otherwise we will be scattered abroad over the face of the earth." So it's like, there are a lot of things wrong with Tower of Babel. One of them is a misuse of resources. They're spending all of this money and physical resources and human labor to build upward, to reach into heaven, and it's like the fruit from that labor, there is no fruit for that labor. They're not going to gain from that. They're putting all of this energy in, and they're not going to receive anything from it. So it's like they're killing themselves with their labor. They're laboring for this, and it's like, oh, what is it you want? What's it that you hope to return? What are you making? We want to make for ourselves a name. You're making a name? That's what your goal is? You want to put in all of this energy and labor and physical resources towards this effort, and the goal, what is it that you ultimately want to make? It's a name? Like, that's what you're building? That's what you want to bring to fruition? You want to make for yourselves a name? And also, it's like, it shows how they were powerful enough to be organized towards a certain work, but they still lacked a certain level of intelligence, where how they built this tower, where it says like they used brick for stone and they used tar for mortar. It's like they're not using the right stuff. Why would you use brick in building this tower? You need to use stone. Why you need mortar? Why are you using tar? It's like they're using these weak materials to build this tower that the bricks at the bottom won't be able to sustain the weight of the tower once it's, you know, built on top of it. So it's like this tower is going to collapse. They're going to kill themselves. They know enough information to make themselves a source of harm towards themselves and towards society. So it's like we need to limit their power. So that's, you know, God confuses their languages and they spread out, and they're not able to collaborate with this effort, because it's like they were intellectually powerful enough to be organized in doing this, you know, effort, but they still lacked a level of intelligence where it's like it's a misuse of resources, and you're not using the right material, and you're going to kill yourselves if we allow you to continue this work. So one of the issues, it's, you know, they're wasting their energy, their time, the, you know, material resources. It was, I don't think they had money, but it was like a waste of money with that effort. So with Elon's, you know, hopes and dreams, well, I see, you know, a resemblance, a comparison. And in regard to like financial management, I know that finding fault and criticizing Elon's management of money is one of the most unreasonable things one could do for the man who has the most of a resource on this planet, to say that, you know, to find fault or criticize ways in which he's mishandling or misusing that resource. That's probably one of the most unreasonable things one could do. But knowing that, well, I say it anyways. I tell him, I think it's a waste of money. This is Elon's hopes and dreams, building these rockets. It's all for the purpose of hopefully one day going to a planet and building a colony and advancing civilization. And I tell him straight up, I think it's a waste of money. I think you're wasting your time. I think you're wasting your time. It's a waste of money. It's just a futile endeavor. It's just a vain, useless thing. It's just, I think it's a waste of money. So you can understand why, you know, that would bring marriage turmoil. It's like, this is this man's whole passion and drive and life mission. Like, these are his dreams. This is what he wants to do. This is what moves him. And it's, I think your dreams are a waste of money. So you can see how that just like would crush this man's soul and just break his frickin' heart. It's like, this is his desires and affections, and as a man, his purpose, his, what he wants to achieve, his labors, it's all towards this, and it's just a fucking waste of time, Elon. You're wasting your time. It's a waste of money. Yeah. So you could see why that would be, you know, marriage turmoil. Yeah, I think it's a waste of money. So then, Elon's response, you fucking bitch. And I play dumb. I'm like, what? And then he's like, you have me playing Santa Claus to this entire country in order to make good on your campaign promises and fulfill your dream. But when it comes to spending my money to bring fulfillment of my dreams, it's a waste. I'm like, yeah, he's right. Okay, that doesn't make sense. That does seem, you know, that does make me look like a bitch for, you know, dragging Elon along into a marriage so that he can fulfill my campaign promises. Everyone gets a wish fulfillment. And then when it comes to his wishes, it's like, it's a waste of money. I could see why he would respond, you fucking bitch. So he's right, yeah. To say that, you know, if he lets me use all of his money in fulfilling everyone else's wishes, well, he should be allowed to use his money to fulfill his wishes. He's right. So we take a camping trip to Elon's planet to fulfill his dreams. He has this dream of fulfilling, you know, starting a colony on a planet, colonizing a planet. What does that entail? Okay, well, let's go do that. So I use camping trip because it's like you set up camp, colonization. That's like camping. So we take a camping trip to Elon's planet to fulfill his dreams. So a crew gets sent to go set up camp. I have Elon, me, Shia, Andrew, and Channel 5 documentary crew. And then the plan is to, when we get there, forge founding documents that state that citizenship is determined by conception, rather than birth. So in the US, it's like if you were born on this soil, well, that makes you a citizen. Well, in Elon's planet colony, if you were conceived there, that is what establishes citizenship. If you were conceived on that planet rather than, being physically birthed on that planet. So with this dream of Elon, well, he has this God complex, and it has it so that the crew isn't citizens. Like, we weren't conceived on that planet, so we aren't citizens of this colony. We're just like overseers and designers and orchestrators. So we're like gods to this planet colony that Elon is establishing, but we're not actual citizens. And for the duration, like, how long are we going to go on this camping trip? Well, however long it takes for myself and Elon to conceive our first child, so that that child is the first citizen. That's how long this camping trip is planned. And then, historically speaking, if I try to plan out my pregnancies, it's typically like 1 or 2 months. And then to encourage U.S. population growth, we offer to take samples from current parents to have their next child conceived in the new colony and then brought back to implant and birth on Earth. So if we want to encourage population growth and having children, well, we have this program where it's like, if you want, we could take, a sperm and an egg, these samples, and we could take them to this planet. We could do the fertilization. They'll be conceived on the planet, which qualifies them to be a citizen of that planet and of that new colony. And then we bring them back and we can implant them, and they'll be, birthed here on Earth. So we have that program. So when we go, we also take samples of eggs and sperm. So Elon and I will conceive naturally, our first child, Lord willing, and then the rest, it's like through, secondary means. And there's Elon acting as God over his planet colony. Yeah, that's in reference to the Truman Show. And then I put this picture, that's me at the Truman House. I like the Truman Show. That's, Truman's house. It's in Seaside, Florida. So that's the actual house that was used in the filming. It's 36 in the movie, but on the street, on the actual street, the house number is 31. And we went there on our way back from staying at Mitchell's parents. They have a timeshare in Destin, Florida. So we went to stay with his parents at their timeshare in Destin, Florida, and that was on our way back. And that's significant because Taylor Swift has a song in her song Florida where she, specifically calls out a timeshare down in Destin. So I thought that was kind of cool. And stuff like this, these little synchronicities, it helps me. It's what brings me in agreement with the theory how, like, this creation and life is like a simulation or is a simulation. Elon, you talk about it a lot with, like, how the character of Iron Man is based off of you, and how you see life as, like, a simulation, and creation as like a simulation. So little things like that, where I'm driving back from Destin and, that picture's at the Truman House. Well, just the fact that my husband, Mom, how she has a timeshare down in Destin, it's just really specific to, I guess, my life. So stuff like that, it's like I could, see how this creation functions kind of like a simulation. Yeah. I think what it is, it's like the more you bring yourself, like your mind, your heart, your will, in alignment with God's mind, heart, and will, you become a positive energy life force. Like, the more you bring yourself in alignment with who the living God is, it's like the more you You become like a positive energy or like a force of life, and your interaction with creation is more powerful and impactful. So the more that one brings themselves into alignment with who the living God is, with their mind and in their will and in their actions and in their thoughts and in their words, well, that makes you like this force of power, this positive energy, this force of life. If you bring yourself in conformity to who the living God is, and you show up in creation in ways that are in accord with like the works of God, that makes you more impactful with creation. And as a side note, if you can't control yourself, like your thoughts and your speech and your works towards others, well, possessing power is terrifying. If you can't control your thoughts, like if you were given like divine power, well, if you can't control your thoughts, that's terrifying. Giving power that you can't control, that's terrifying. So, yep, if you learn how to control your thoughts, control your way of thinking, control, how you think, how you speak, what you do, well, that can make you, more powerful once you demonstrate that you're able to control it. And it makes it you can be more impactful in creation. So you do something and then creation responds to it. Well, you make an impact because it's in alignment with who God is. God is God over creation. So if you're in alignment with the living God, well, creation is subject to you. You're more impactful. So, and that concept, it's like when you're meditating on scripture and the works of God and the promises of God, well, that's the means through which God brings it about. Believing in his promises, having faith, meditating on scripture, your mind, your processing power, this control room of your mind, if you're meditating on scripture, meditating on the promises of God, believing that he will do certain things, that's the means through which God brings it about. Creation submits to your will because it's also God's will. God is God over creation. So if you bring your mind and your thoughts and your will in alignment with the living God, well, your will, I think creation recognizes it as the will of God. So creation submits to it because it recognizes it as being the will of God. And creation is subject to God. So that authority is like handed down. So if you have spiritual authority, well, creation recognizes that as the authority of God. If your mind and your heart and your will is in conformity to who God is. And then I have this quote from Nikola Tesla. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So energy, force, power, we all have energy and we give energy, sending out positive vibes, doing good, speaking good, blessing others. It's just different terms communicating, the same idea. So that kind of concepts like that we see in scripture and being played out, it kind of ties into how this is kind of like a simulation. More on simulation theory. So I wrote this article on August 1st, 2025, and it was about the National Monument to the Four Founders, which was dedicated on August 1st, 1889, and now it's August 1st, 2026, and I didn't plan this out. So it's another synchronicity. So in this article, I talk about how the events recorded in William Bradford's journal how they coordinate with the events at the end of Acts. So at the end of Acts, there's a shipwreck, and William, Bradford and the Pilgrims, when they're sailing over here on a ship, well, events that happen in their sea journeys, and when they land, it's like remarkably similar to the events that Luke documents in at the end of Acts. So, and I think that's because William Bradford is meditating on the works of God and how God provided for Luke and the people of God in that situation, and he's trusting in the promises of God, and he's meditating on these things, and I think that's the means through which God brings it about. It was the faith of William Bradford, and that's me in front of the statue. So this spiritual strength, so I think women are more powerful spiritually and men are more powerful physically. Men have greater physical strength, but I think women have greater spiritual strength. Women with their feelings and intuition and empathy are able to have a stronger and direct connection to God. And then I put, and I think men can access this with a connection to a woman. And you see that in Jesus with like his mother Mary, or Mary Magdalene, or Mary, who was the sister of Martha, when Mary was weeping over her brother dying. Well, because Jesus had a connection to her, and he loved her, and he was empathetic and compassion, it's like her emotional distress that moved Jesus to perform this physical miracle of bringing Lazarus back from the dead. So I think women have more spiritual power, and then when men are, empathetic and compassionate to that, and they use their physical strength to want to help them, well, that enables Jesus to perform these physical, these miracles in physical creation, having that connection through Mary. But yeah, men need to hear and understand and receive the words of women and take them to heart and care. They have to give a shit if a woman is in emotional distress and want to resolve it. And then, as a side note, if a man doesn't know how to hear, receive, and respond to words, they shouldn't be speaking. And that's been my experience. Hyperheadship, patriarchy, women are inferior, their words don't matter, they aren't heard, words only go downward. You hear our words, and that's it. We don't hear your words. It's just a fucking joke. Your words don't matter. That's been my experience with how men view women and how they view the words of women. So if a man doesn't know how to hear, receive, and respond to words, they shouldn't be speaking. You have to learn how to hear in order to know how to talk. So if men don't know how to hear and listen, they shouldn't fucking talk. That's where I'm at right now. And this idea that men are more logical, that's a lie. I have Luke 24 where the women witness the resurrection and they come back, they return from the tomb and reported all these things to the 11 and to all the rest. But these words appeared to them as nonsense and they would not believe them. It's just how they view women. There was nothing wrong with their words. It appeared as nonsense because how they view women. They think women are nonsense. So that's how they view women, so that's how they view their words. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just exactly as the women also had said, but him they did not see. And he said to them, so they found it just exactly as the women also had said. So they were speaking words of truth, words of sense, but it was viewed as nonsense. And it's because how they viewed women, because of the source through which God chose truth to go through. And then Jesus responds, "O foolish men and slow of heart to believe in all that the prophets have spoken." This is what Jesus is saying of the male gender, that they are foolish men and slow of heart to believe. They're not very logical, kind of dim-witted, unreasonable, foolish. The words they appeared like nonsense. Foolish men. If the men viewed the women as fools, and that's why they viewed their words as nonsense, that testifies that they're foolish. How someone perceives something, it could testify of the observer. It could say more about the observer than what it is that they're observing. So if they viewed their words as nonsense, oh, these words are foolish, these women are foolish, their words are nonsense, it just testifies that they're foolish men. So if a man doesn't know how to hear and receive and respond to words, or receive data and evaluate it objectively, regardless of the source through which it comes through, they're not very reasonable and they shouldn't talk. So, but you can't control that. You can just control what you give attention to. They render their words weightless and empty and vain. I'll try to go quickly. So the planet camping trip, well, prep work gets started, and Elon and I start shopping for parchment and writing instruments for me to scribe the founding documents for Elon's planet colony when we get there. And then when at the stationery store, well, I start feeling resentful. Why? Well, the last time I was there, I was shopping for paper for our wedding invites by myself. I had asked Elon to join me, but he was too busy managing his spectrum of companies. But when it comes to parchment for his planet colony, well, now he has the time and flexibility. So I asked him to come shopping for paper for our wedding invites. He didn't have the time. But now that we're shopping for paper and parchment for the founding documents of his planet colony, now he has all the time in the world. He can reschedule meetings. He can cancel it. He can, oh, we're just going to cancel that car and release it next year. Now it's like all this time and flexibility. So we go out shopping for parchment. I start feeling resentful, but I let it go. And then when checking out, well, Elon notices a sign-up sheet, and it's for a paper-making class, and he signs us up. I'm like, why do you want to sign up to make parchment and make paper? We're buying this parchment, for these documents. Why do you want to learn how to make it? And he's like, I want to see if I can make it better. And it is a fun class, and together we do develop a better product. He does make it better. So, yep, there's a picture of, the paper making stuff. And then when we get to Elon's planet, well, the trip goes well, and we set up camp. Elon and I conceive our alien baby. He's not of this world. And then we get ready to fertilize the rest of the babies. So after Elon and I conceive naturally a pregnancy, and that's, confirmed, well, then we start fertilization of all the other babies once we have we have the first citizen. So Andrew goes and grabs the eggs. And on his way back, he trips. And then, the containers which house the eggs, well, they fall out of the tray that was marked. So the tray was marked with the families and the specimens, and then the containers fall out of that marked tray. So we don't know what egg goes with which family. It's not marked anymore. What did Andrew trip on? The outfit I tried on in the morning and then changed my mind. So I put on an outfit, I changed my mind, and then I left the clothes on the floor and I put on my new outfit. And then, earlier Elon had brought it to my attention. He told me, you need to pick up your stuff. This isn't just a bedroom, it's a lab. We can't have tripping hazards. So, he told me, he brought that to my attention, earlier, and I said, okay, I will. And I didn't. and now Andrew tripped over it, and that's why the eggs are spilled out of their, tray. And then there's silence. No one says anything. And then eventually I break the silence and I say, we have two options. People are expecting us to return with fertilized eggs, and withholding life is a form of murder. Also, women consented that their egg is fertilized by a specific sperm. To fertilize a woman's egg with a sperm she didn't consent to is a form of forced union, is a form of sexual assault. So, we are returning to Earth as being guilty of either murder or sexual assault. This is the situation that we're in right now. When we go back home, we're going back as either having committed murder or having committed sexual assault. So, choose. Elon insists on moving forward with fertilization. He chooses forced union, unconsented forced union, and it's out of self-will and desperation. His dream is to colonize a planet. A colony is a group. You can't have a colony with one citizen. So yeah, we currently only have one citizen. That's not a colony. Elon came all this way for a colony. He's going to get his fucking colony. So he is choosing forced fertilization out of like self-will and desperation. I tell him, we can pray it's twins. Have faith in God. Like, even though we think it's one, well, we can pray that it's twins, and then we'll have two citizens. Like, and that could be a colony. Have faith in God. Maybe it's twins. We're past that. He's spiraling. He doesn't have faith. He doesn't have faith that he could pray and then God, it'll be twins. It's like he needs to bring this about. So he starts spiraling. He's like, give me the eggs. I'll do it. And then I'm starting to have a panic attack because it's like the nature of man is unavoidable. You're going to have like power, control, violence, domination, just everywhere you go. It's unavoidable. But then, wait, Shia interjects after studying the problem laid out on the table. And he asks, what are the odds that each sperm and egg pair get matched up correctly by random chance? And then Elon runs the calcs in his head and he says 1 out of 14,605,000 from like, Dr. Strange. Those are the chances that, by random chance, things get matched up perfectly of their own accord. There is a chance that things do get matched up as people had consented to, if we move forward with fertilization. And those are the odds. I like Dr. Strange. So it's enough to give us hope. So instead of going back as, being guilty, definitely guilty of murder, it's not like murder or sexual assault. The options are definitely murder or most likely sexual assault. But it's not for certain. We can't be certain that it's like a forced, unwanted union because we don't know. It's like Pandora's box. We don't know. It could all work out in the end. So those are the two options. But probability and mathematics, it's like, well, most likely it's sexual assault. But that is the better option. Most likely sexual assault is the choice the choice that morality would have someone make if those are the two options. So it gives us hope and we move forward with fertilization. And then we start calling Shia Superman because the symbol, it means hope. So because he realizes that there's a probability that it's not an unconsented forced union, well, it gives us hope. So we call him Superman for that. And then that allows for, boom, Shia now has a brand logo. So we start calling Shia Superman because that symbol, it means hope. Boom, now Shia has a brand logo on my hypothetical NASCAR ferry jacket with sponsors. Now Shia has a brand logo, whereas before he didn't. So this is where the question comes in, Elon, an hour and a half later. thank you for bearing with me. So the question for Elon, do you want to hire me as a professional problem solver? This is what the process looks like for problems of dissonance, where it's like the jacket's like, I make this jacket, it's like Shia doesn't have a logo. Yep, that's what the process looks like for problems of dissonance. It's like guided thoughts on a seemingly random, chaotic path of connected ideas leading to a resolution. It doesn't make sense all the time. It looks like chaos, but you just have to trust the process. With a polymath mind, I find answers to my problems in different fields and in random places. Like when I started this presentation and I noticed Shia didn't have a logo, it bothered me. And then at the end of this, it's like, oh, now I have a logo, but it's not like that was my goal. It's just I recognized a problem, and then it's like as I was doing the PowerPoint, eventually I come to a solution. The solution to the problem kind of appears on itself if I just let my brain work passively. Yeah, I think I have a polymath mind. The king's heart is like the channels of water in the hand of the Lord. He turns it wherever he wishes. So I think that's another instance where it's like I have this problem that bothers me, and it's like because God is mindful and God, cares for me, and God sees this problem that I have in my mind, this like dissonance. It's like God wants me to have peace. So it's like God leads me down this path to where it's like the solution presents itself. And God's like turning my heart and directing my thoughts. So if you need a professional problem solver, this is kind of what it looks like. There is no wage to ascribe to that skill, nor is there a way to define what constitutes as working. You would just have to provide for me to have the freedom to do what I want when I want to do it. I know that this is like a niche skill, and you might have niche problems, and you might consider a skill like this really valuable. And I think you might be the only one that could make use of this skill and be able to afford what it takes for this skill to thrive. So, yeah. And I just have to be provided the freedom to do what I want when I want to do that. And that might lead me to do certain things, and it looks like random chaos, but it's like through activities and learning, and that's God will lead me on the path that I will eventually find solutions to problems. That's just how it works. I just have to be passive and just do what I want to do when I want to do it, and go in the direction that my heart and mind leads me. This is what it looks like with this issue of this jacket, and Shia doesn't have a logo. And it's like, in order for, the problem to be solved, well, the problem has to bother me. I have to be in a state of unrest and then moved to a state of peace. So something has to bother me, and then through life situations and scenarios, eventually I get a resolution to where I'm not bothered anymore. I'm now in a state of peace. And the easiest way to accomplish this is to be friends. Because what bothers you might not bother me directly. But as friends, I would be bothered that you were bothered. And that alone would provoke my concern and motivate me and move me. So if we were friends, well, if I knew what problems you had and what bothered you, well, just having knowledge of that in the back of my mind and having the desire of like, I want Elon to have peace over these things, I would be active and think about how can I bring this man peace. But there's also a passive aspect where it's like, if I don't have a solution right away, as I'm living my life, the solution will make itself known, if there is one. So that's just how it works. We have to be friends. And I have to have knowledge of what your problems are and what bothers you. It's like a respect of each other's feelings. Because my feeling and intuition, that's what moves me and leads me and guides me, being like sensitive towards the spirit. So it's like, you have to respect my feelings and I have to respect your feelings. It's kind of like a mutual care. That's how it would work. So, and then I have Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. So it's like, it's kind of like this spiritual, divine virtue. It's like, I want people to have peace. So if we were friends and I knew what had you in a state of unrest, well, I want to make peace for you. So that's kind of, how it works. That's what it means to be a peacemaker. If people are in a state of unrest, you want to bring them to a state of peace. You want to make peace for them. So it's like, what bothers you, I want that resolved. I want you to have peace. So, for example, here's where it showed up with Shia LaBeouf. This was part 1 of the series. Here we are on part 13. So part 1 of this series, I talk about from that interview, Shia says, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I heard some MFs say I was performative today. It bothered me. So once I had awareness of this statement that, this insult that Shia heard and he was bothered by it, well, I'm bothered that Shia is bothered. So it's like, here I address it in this video where I help him see that situation and give him knowledge and truth so that hopefully this truth will bring him peace. So that's kind of how it shows up with my interaction with Shia. My will that I'm going to be this man's friend and he doesn't have to consent to it. I can just do it. So knowing this bothered him, well, I want him to have peace. So that's kind of where you see it in part 1 of this series. Yep. And this 13 to 1 and like missing a patch to having a patch, this you see this resolve over this series and in this video standalone. Well, what's that called? It's a chiasm. And a chiasm is like this literary structure, typically in written word, based on the Greek letter chi or chi. I think it's chi. I don't know. X. And it's found in scripture, that literary structure, chiasms. It's found in scripture, and it's an evidence that it's evidence of its divine authorship. So that's one of the evidence of scripture that its author ultimately is God working through human agents. You see chiasms appear. And I talk about that in this video. Use of power. It's like music, language, chiasms, and I show this example in James, but you also see it with like Noah in the flood, events in the flood leading up to, God remembering Noah, and then the events after it. It's like a mirror event. It's based off of the letter, the Greek letter chi, which is like an X, where it like peaks and then comes back. So, and like the peak, the middle point, well, that's where it's like where things turn, the emphasis, that's where it's like the attention, like here in James, but above all, my brethren, do not swear. So that's like the peak. It's building up to this peak. Above all, do not swear. And then it's like you come back down and it gets resolved. So if this is a series of, this is 13 in a series, well, and now it's like you see evidence of a chiasm, well, the peak would have been part 7. So I have part 7 there. That would be the peak of this chiastic structure found in this video series. So Elon, let me know if you want to hire me as a professional problem solver. You just have to be able to provide the support for me to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And then with that, that's the end of part 13 of Shia LaBeouf, Wish Granted. And then also question for Elon Musk at the end. Yep. I hope everyone is blessed. Yep. Be blessed. Okay.